Hi, this is Alake Pilgrim, and this is an excerpt from a work called Love and Other Islands. Thank you for listening. The more Layla went to visit Mikey in prison, the more she saw the change. Expelled from the university after marching for Black Power, she expected him to be angry, but he seemed withdrawn. He was losing weight, fasting, he said, in protest at first, then just trying to see things more clearly. Dark circles took over his eyes. His cheeks were sunken. When she asked him if he was sleeping, he said, "No, just thinking." About what, she asked. He wouldn't say. After a few months of this, he told her that he had been reading in the prison library about revolutions around the world. All of them had ended in failure, he said. All of them? She knew that wasn't true, but he brushed right past her questions, not listening. Even revolts that had been successful in one way, like the Haitian Revolution, he claimed, were quickly punished. The people who had struggled for change were either crushed or slowly suffocated by world powers, every attempt made to bury even their memory. She tried to raise some examples that countered this hopeless thinking, but he rushed on. Maybe, he argued, the Prime Minister had understood what they in their naivete had not, that the powers that be would never allow real change in countries like theirs. She listened in silent disagreement until visiting hours were over. Soon every visit dragged on like this, a lecture on the meaninglessness of things, until she found herself coming to see him only once every 2 weeks, instead of twice a week like she had before. He never addressed the change in her visits, and she hushed her guilt by telling herself that she needed to take in more washing, ironing, and cleaning to keep paying the rent at his old place and keep them both afloat. Then, after the first year of his sentence, without explanation, Mikey started to put back on weight, reaching and then surpassing his former size, cultivating a pear shape. His face softened. The dimple in his chin deepened under his round yet stern cheeks. He began to texturize his hair, combing it back from his already high forehead, then shaving his hairline back in a distinctive arc. He began wearing dark glasses during visiting hours. To protect his eyes, he snapped when she asked. His voice took on a higher tone and staccato register that seemed strange to her, yet somehow familiar. He barely talked to her anymore in the shared visitors' room, crammed full of mothers and wives and girlfriends trying to catch up with their men. He rarely smiled. His fellow inmates and their families stared in his direction, whispering and giggling, shocked and fascinated, offended, amused, and confused. Yet only when the other prisoners grinned at her and referred to him as Doc, saying loudly, "Yes, see the boss man in here with us today," did she begin to understand what was happening. It dawned on her that the Mikey she knew had been slowly replaced. He began making pronouncements in a thin yet cutting tenor voice, speaking in that stop-and-start cadence that made apparent paradoxes seem not only reasonable but wise, such as, democracy means the protection of the weak against the strong, and democracy means the obligation of the minority to recognize the right of the majority. He began reciting capitalism and slavery to her word for word. The PM's groundbreaking Oxford University thesis turned book, showing how European development had been funded by enslavement. She tried to listen but couldn't help interrupting, staring at his sunken eyes. Mikey, you sleeping at night? When I speak, no damn dog bark, he muttered. She stared at him in shock. It was one of the PM's favorite phrases. Inherited, it was said, from his mother, a dark-skinned descendant of a formerly slave-holding clan. When I speak, no damn dog bark. It was a way of functioning that had been taken up and echoed with laughter or conviction by people in homes and bars, in community centers and corner shops, in offices and organizations all across the island. But she had never expected to hear it from her own husband. After that, Mikey spoke to her less and didn't meet her eyes, as if he were preoccupied with other more important things, or there was something that he didn't want her to see behind those dark glasses. One day, when she came to visit, something snapped. Mikey was restless and agitated, grimacing and twitching, looking over his shoulder as if someone were creeping up on him from behind. "What's wrong?" Layla asked, her voice breaking. He started talking quickly, furiously, about a secret code in the PM's book from Columbus to Castro. "Y'all better listen," he shouted suddenly, banging on the table between them. "The future of your children lies in what you decide. No more past in the future, no present without amnesia." The room fell silent except for the sound of his voice. Then there was an uproar as two guards rushed toward them. "Mikey," she reached for his hand, but he yanked it away. "When I speak, no damn dog bark!" he screamed. "You're hurting him," she begged the guards as they wrenched his arms behind his back and began wrestling him out of the room. Mikey kicked and ordered them to let him go, in that piercing voice of authority they knew so well. But it no longer held the sway it once had, coming as it seemed now from a prison of the mind. As the guards dragged him out, some joked loudly, others uneasily, as if they weren't too sure what to do. Layla looked at the man she had once trusted with her time and energy, her focus, dreams, and future. Perhaps that was the problem. She had given away too much. She looked up and he was gone, guards and all. And she was left with herself and her thoughts. Now it was up to her to decide what next. Thank you.